So first, let me ask the witnesses to please stand and raise your right hand. Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give before this committee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Let the record reflect that the witnesses have answered in the affirmative, so we're going to let them proceed.
Chairman Durbin, Ranking Member Grassley, and distinguished members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to participate in today's hearing. I appear before you today as the Chief of Police of Dallas, Texas. It is also my privilege to testify on behalf of Major City Chiefs Association. We're here today to discuss the rise in carjackings occurring throughout the country. This trend is part of a larger increase in violent crime, which has disproportionately impacted MCCA members. Despite immense challenges, our brave officers continue to work tirelessly to keep our communities safe. The most recent MCCA violent crime report clearly shows that America is in the midst of a violent crime wave. In major cities nationwide, homicides in 2021 were approximately 49% compared to 2019 and 53% compared to 2018. Like other types of violent crime, carjacking has continued to rise. In several cities, the rates have more than doubled over the past few years. A few factors are driving this increase. These include financial gain, but mostly to further other criminal violent activity. Many of these carjackings are also committed by juveniles seeking to gain notoriety on social media or as part of gang initiations. Identifying and preventing this act of violence before it occurs and holding these individuals accountable is the best course of action. Despite the rise in crime, violent and chronic offenders continue to cycle through the criminal justice system. DAs at times are reluctant to prosecute certain crimes, including some violent and gun crimes. And judges continue to release violent and repeat offenders pre-trial. These challenges extend to juveniles offenders as well. Make no mistake, please, the general lack of accountability nationwide is contributing to the increase in violent crime and carjacking. Recruitment and retention remain challenging, and understaffing has contributed to officer burnout. At the executive level, since January 2020, more than half of MCCA's member agencies have also experienced a change in leadership. Such frequent turnover is detrimental to public safety overall and can make it incredibly difficult to institute reform or culture change. The current outlook in Dallas is not akin to other major cities, and while some other cities are seeing record homicides, my city has experienced a decrease, and it's not by chance. The reduction in violent crime we've seen in Dallas would not be possible without the support of our city government, the exemplary work of the men and women and staff of the Dallas Police Department, and criminologists from the University of Texas San Antonio. And I'd like to take a moment to use this platform to publicly thank them and their sacrifice for the incredible work that they do every day to keep the residents of the city of Dallas safe. Our crime fighting strategy is centered on a violent crime reduction plan. The plan relies heavily on science and crime data and was developed in conjunction with criminologists, Drs. Mike Smith and Drs. Rob Tillier from the University of Texas San Antonio. The short-term strategies of the plan focus on hotspots policings. Based on crime analysis and mapping, we've broken the city down into approximately 101,000 microgrids and deployed a highly visible presence to 50 of those crime grids. These 50 represent approximately 10% of the city total's violent crime. This mix of engagement and enforcement with our community has driven down violent crime in these grids by 50% and ultimately violent crime as a whole citywide. The plan's midterm strategies consist of place network investigations. Dallas PD works with other stakeholders to mix traditional law enforcement actions with other efforts on locations of criminogenic nature by strengthening the neighborhood and reinvesting in the community. The longer-term strategies included in the plan emphasize focused deterrence to change behavior of high-risk offenders. These efforts include the provision of services, community violence interventions, when necessary, enforcement action. Violent crime in Dallas decreased in 2021 and is down roughly 17% again year to date. Given the successes of the work of the men and women of the Dallas Police Department, I strongly encourage fellow chiefs to work in conjunction with criminologists to develop their own violent crime plan that meets the unique needs of their community. Many MCCA members are already working with our federal partners to address violent crime and carjacking. These efforts should be expanded. Victim services as well as programs such as Project Safe Neighborhoods will be critical and must be adequately resourced. MCCA members have found pursuing federal charges for violent criminals to be a successful strategy and a powerful deterrent. To support these efforts, Congress must help build capacity of the U.S. Attorney's Office to support additional prosecutions as appropriate. Proactive policing is critical and will be key to reducing violent crime overall, which will help drive down carjackings. Unfortunately, proactive policing in some cities has become a luxury, especially for local police departments contending with high murder rates, low staffing, and low morale. Law enforcement needs more resources to bolster its response to violent crime. Much of the recent federal assistance provided localities is not being used for law enforcement purposes. Congress should strongly consider providing additional assistance and must fully fund important grants such as COPS and the Burn Jag. Continuing anti-law enforcement rhetoric has left honorable officers feeling vilified and criminals, offenders often bolstered. Support for law enforcement for our elected leaders has never been more vital. The support of the mayor and the city council have been integral in Dallas's efforts to reduce violent crime. Reform and proactive public safety are not mutually exclusive, and without the support of the work and sacrifices of our men and women, no plan will be successful. In closing, the successes we've had reducing violent crime in Dallas demonstrates how our communities are safer and more prosperous when investments are made, police officers are supported, and stakeholders work together. I look forward to any questions the committee may have. Thank you.
I'm going to go to a different topic here with you, Chief Garcia, and that would be about, in general, supporting the police and the need to, the morale issue and the like. I've led bipartisan legislation for years with Senator Murkowski, Coons, Tillis, about reauthorizing the COPS program. Could you talk about how that helps local law enforcement?
Absolutely. Having that support from the COPS office and the COPS program, not only for the programs that we want to do and institute with regards to looking at ways, if we remember the old weed and seed programs that we would have prior. I was a big weed and seed back in the early 90s when I started this, and we kind of had a resurgence of it in the city of Dallas with the terminology and using that. But having those resources, helping resources, and getting officers on the street, doing both proactive policing as well as community engagement is crucial and critical. More police officers in law enforcement agencies, if you have a plan, reduces violent crime.
If you have a plan.
Yes, ma'am.
Chief Garcia, you can understand why I and others from Texas and particularly in the Dallas area are proud of the great work that you and the Dallas Police Department have done and the support that you've gotten from leadership like Mayor Johnson and the City Council. And I appreciate your being here and sharing your formula for success. Is there any reason why other cities across the country couldn't embrace your approach in Dallas with similar results?
There is no reason, Senator. I believe some have reached out. Some have reached out to us, and some have reached out to my criminologist partners as well. But there is no reason why other agencies can't be doing the same things.
Am I correct in assuming that since carjacking involves the threat or actual use of violence, that overwhelmingly it involves a firearm?
Overwhelmingly, yes.
And you, Chief, and I think Mr. Glau, if I pronounce his name correctly, both mentioned Project Safe Neighborhood, and which of course is a federal program designed to go after violent offenders that use a firearm, felons in possession and others, and use the mandatory minimums available under federal firearms law. That started out, as I recall, as Project Exile in the Richmond U.S. Attorney's Office years ago. In Texas, when I was Attorney General, we called it Texas Exile. But the basic point is working with local and state law enforcement and federal resources, particularly the federal prosecutors, to use federal law to go after violent gun offenders and use the mandatory minimum available under federal law in order to dissuade people from using a firearm in the first place, and if you couldn't, to put them behind bars for a significant period of time. In your experience, Chief, is Project Safe Neighborhood an important component of your ability to lower violent crime and reduce gun crime in Dallas?
Absolutely. We have a remarkable relationship with my FBI, DEA, ATF, Marshals office. We are in constant conversations. They have molded what we're doing to PSN to look at how we're doing our crime plan and be able to make that coexist. There is no question that the deterrent of filing these cases federally does work. And again, as we made mention earlier, I mean, one of the things we need to do is really utilize the laws that we have on the books. If we believe that gun crime is an issue, then individuals that are violating those laws need to be held accountable to the highest extent.
Thanks to all the witnesses. I think it was a good hearing. We learned a lot, and I hope you were able to teach us effectively and feel that you had a rewarding experience as well. You helped us understand this complicated issue and how the federal government has a role in it, and the state and local responsibilities as well.